All right, YouTube, want to give a big War Eagle and a happy holidays to all the Auburn fans out there and the folks around the SEC. As a matter of fact, there is a representative of the SEC that's going to be taking on Oklahoma in the first game of the college football playoff. LSU taking on Oklahoma, LSU representing the SEC as SEC champions. After shellacking Georgia in the SEC championship, ironically, Auburn was the most challenging game of the year, that and Auburn's counterparts, Alabama. Go ahead and like the video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. As always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger or Eagle. All right, so now it's prediction time for the Auburn versus Minnesota football game. Minnesota, of course, has enjoyed a very successful season. 10-2. Defeating Penn State, a signature win for them this year. I think, Minnesota is a very, very well-developed team. They don't jump out at you as far as being a super talented team, but they're a team, if you let them hang around long enough, they can beat you. My issue with Minnesota is the level of physicality that they have faced throughout the season. When you talk about Power 5 football and you talk about speed, agility, power, you talk about high-level recruiting classes, you talk about the SEC. This is no SEC bias. This is no SEC homerism. But right now, Auburn is the number 7 ranked recruiting class with some talented players on their football team or in their recruiting class that have signed. However, Auburn is like number 5 in the conference. So that just goes to show you how much of the nation's talent is or does migrate to the SEC, which will, when you see this on the field in the Outback Bowl, just like you saw in the Music City Bowl, a team like Auburn in a bowl that's not a college football playoff or a New Year's Six Bowl, I would say that that team is particularly in trouble. Now, here's the good news for Minnesota. They have some very well-coached football players. These guys should be motivated. Although they're not going to have their offensive coordinator, they should be motivated to take on one of the better teams in the country, in my opinion, in Auburn. That's no homerism either. Auburn competed very well against teams that are representing huge in the college bowl season, including Pac-12 champion Oregon, including Florida, including LSU, including Georgia. All of these games, Auburn at some point had a viable opportunity to win the football games. They were never outclassed in any of these games. So, one thing I do like about Minnesota is the fact that they have a pretty good offensive line, and they're pretty big too. You look at the right guard and the right tackle, Curtis Dunlap and Daniel Fieli. These guys are big, but the only thing is they're inexperienced. And I don't think, when you really look at the totality of the circumstance that Minnesota is getting into in this Outback Bowl, I just don't think they've faced this level of physicality. And I don't think they will ever in their lives face the level of talent at the point of attack on defense. It's not going to ever get any better than this for Auburn. I think Auburn will continue to be good at the defensive line, but I don't think it will ever be as epic for a while as it was this year. Derek Brown, Marlon Davidson, Tyrone Truesdale, Cornish Miller, Derek Hall was a guy who was in and out as well. Big Cat Bryant. This combination was deadly and lethal. And I'm not sure if Minnesota has the houses to get this done, okay? Now, another thing I like about Minnesota is they have a pretty good quarterback in Tanner Morgan. Also, they have some good running back in Rodney Smith, a 1,000-yard runner. Rashad Bateman. Now, if you look at the Penn State game, Rashad Bateman he's not like super duper fast, but the thing I like about Rashad Bateman is he's very fundamentally sound, and you could tell he's definitely a student of the business. He kind of reminds me, not because he wears the number 13, but he reminds me of Chad Evans from Texas A&M, a guy who is just a little bit faster than the typical tight end, but has enough agility and enough as a student of the game to make big plays happen. He's a 1,000-yard receiver for Minnesota. Also, you look at Chris Autman-Bell, who's also a 1,000-yard receiver as well. But at the same time, you look at Auburn. Well, let's go back to Minnesota. You look at Minnesota, they run a 4-3 defense, run the spread on offense. Auburn's used to looking at the spread. 4-3 defense, I don't know. They're going to have to vary it a little bit because Auburn likes to run kind of a spread attack with a good offensive line. This offense is absolutely deadly. That's going to be the question of this particular football game. What version of the Auburn offensive line will show up in this particular game? If they are playing physical, then Minnesota has no chance, okay? Because Bo Nix is starting to get really comfortable with this particular offense. And really, if you look at it, Bo Nix is very comfortable in zone read, run pass option. So if Auburn can get that going, I don't see it being close. Auburn is a very talented football team, especially on defense. They can line up and match up with whomever they want to in the country because they're so fast at linebacker, and their defensive line has the ability to put pressure on the quarterback. And I think this is something that the quarterback for Minnesota has not seen all year. So as I predict this game, I really have a lot of respect for Minnesota and what they've accomplished on this year. But I think when you look at the brand of Auburn and where they're trying to go as a program, they're not going to let Minnesota get in the way of tarnishing, especially having a victory over Alabama. I think Coach Gus Malzahn and his staff has these guys ready and ready for the future, especially with this good recruiting class coming in. I'm looking at a game where Auburn not absolutely dominates, but dominates enough to make a statement. We're talking 38-17 over the Minnesota Gophers in a early morning matchup on January 1st. Man, I've really enjoyed this, guys. That doesn't mean I'm not going to do a video tomorrow, but that does mean I'm doing a prediction on Minnesota today. I love you guys. Go ahead and like the video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And you all know what it is. It's always great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle.